people into this ideology or movement? What drew you in?
You know, I was recruited when I was 14 years old in 1987, and I spent 8 years, every one of my teen and early adulthood years, until 1995 when I was 22 in America's first neo-Nazi skinhead group. And what drew me in and what draws people in that I speak to every day is this idea of a fundamental need for identity, community, and purpose. And if there's an underlying brokenness, if there's a pothole that deviated their path originally, they're open to these ideas of an us against them narrative, or blaming somebody else for the problems that exist in their lives. And frankly, we're living in a society right now where millions of young people are feeling marginalized. They don't have a lot to hope for. Job opportunities are scarce. College is expensive if you even are quote unquote lucky enough to take that burden on. And there isn't a whole lot for them to look forward to as far as leadership or where our country's going. So it doesn't surprise me that young people are joining far-right groups, they're joining inner-city gangs, and they're even flying to Syria to join ISIS because they want paradise. They want a solution for what's happening.
Why do you think Charlottesville specifically is becoming a target for this movement? We know there was an earlier rally in the same area held by Richard Spencer back in May, and then we see this large gathering yesterday that the Southern Poverty Law Center had anticipated being the largest hate group gathering in decades.
Yeah. The truth is rallies like this have been happening for decades. They haven't been reported. In my book, I write about a rally that was almost identical to what happened in Charlottesville. And make no mistake, this wasn't about a statue. This was about racism. This was about showing showing other Americans through fear that these people can gather and really try and spread this rhetoric around so that people see them in mass and think that this is a big movement. And in fact, it is a big movement, but it is very spread out online, and it lives in mostly a virtual world.
I want you to listen to what the president said in response to the violence in Charlottesville yesterday. Watch.
We condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence on many sides. On many sides.
What do you make of his statement? Did you hear a dog whistle in that?
Oh, I did, of course. I think the far right has, since the beginning, used propaganda and spinning to call the left wing the haters, or to call them the bigots or the racists. As far as what I saw yesterday, I saw only one group or one movement ram a car into people and murder somebody. I saw one group carrying swastika flags, and then I saw another group of American citizens who were standing up against something that they believe is undemocratic and un-American. So for somebody to say, especially the president, to come out and equate the protesters that were there to the neo-Nazi demonstrators, to me is not calling it how it is. And I would love to hear the president call out white supremacists for what they were doing yesterday specifically.
You do not sound like somebody who has lived and breathed that ideology, that mentality. What does it take to change the hearts and minds of members of these groups?
You know, it really, for me and for so many other people, it really comes down to receiving compassion from the people that we least deserve it from when we least deserve it. I had the opportunity to meet Richard Spencer. I sat down with him for 2 hours after I spoke in Whitefish, Montana, after the town was terrorized by neo-Nazi trolls. And I can tell you that had I punched him, or had he punched me, and I'm talking about 25 years ago, I would have come back angrier. It would have polarized us further. And what we need to do is start with the common ground. And I know it's hard for people to believe that we actually have some common ground with neo-Nazis or with haters, but we do. We're all Americans. We all want happiness. We all want to be loved. We all want security. And we need to start from there and stop blaming each other for the problems that exist in the world, when 99% of the time, none of us are responsible for those problems. We're in this together.
Was there something somebody said specifically that woke you up?
You know, it started with the birth of my children. When I was 19 years old, I got married, and I I felt connected to the innocence that I lost at 14 years old when my son was born. There were people, after I opened a record store to sell specifically white power music, which ended up being 75% of my revenue back in the early 90s, I started to also sell hip hop and punk rock and meet the people that I thought I hated. For the first time in my life, I had a meaningful interaction with African Americans or with Jewish people or with gay people, and I suddenly realized that I had much more in common with them than I had in difference, and that the differences were only there to really, add more flavor and add culture to it and appreciate rather than polarize us further.
Well, Christian Picciolini, really appreciate your time, and thank you for bringing your perspective and your insight to our show.
Thank you, Anna.
Coming up.